In the last video, I ended by saying that alchemists used a process called putrefaction and decay in their search for the elusive philosopher's stone. I was able to find an ancient alchemical text written in 1546 called A Form and Method of Perfecting Base Metals by Janus Lacinius the Calabrian. And I'm able to include some of the photos and illustrations that appeared in this text, though I could not find all of them. And on this first slide, we see that ancient alchemists believed metals were constructed after the manner of man, whose constitution is composed of three factors: body, soul, and spirit. And the image shown here is a symbolic illustration of this, because it represents the trinity of body, soul, and spirit. In this text, A Form and Method of Perfecting Base Metals, there is a fascinating series of pictorial images that symbolize death and decay. This is the first image shown, and the caption for this first image reads, "Enter the palace in which are 15 mansions, where the king, his brow circled by the diadem, sits on a lofty throne, holding in his hand the scepter of the whole world before him. And his son and 5 servants kneel in robes of different colors, imploring him to bestow upon his son and his servants a share of his power. But he does not even reply to their request." The text goes on then to say that the son, incited by the servants, stabs the father as he sits on the throne. And the commentary to this is, "Let an amalgam be made with highly purified water," etc. Then in the third picture, we see the son catching his father's blood in his robe, which is the second process of the art. A grave is dug in the fourth mansion, which is the furnace. Its depth is 2 handbreadths and its width 4 inches. In the 5th mansion, the son thought to throw his father into the grave and to leave him there, but both fell in together. The author says the 6th mansion is that in which the son strives to get out, but one comes and prevents him from so doing. While the father and the son are in the tomb, which is called the 7th mansion, there follows putrefaction in their ashes, or a very hot bath. In the 8th mansion, the author tells us that which happened during the putrefaction is inspected, the vase having become cold. In the 9th mansion, the bones are taken from the tomb. This happens when the whole body has been dissolved by successive solution, which being done, the author says, keep it carefully. In the 10th mansion, the bones are divided into 9 parts, the dissolved substance being subjected to gentle coction for 9 days, till a portion of it turns black. Remove this latter, the author says, and keep it in another vessel in a hot place. Subject the water to gentle heat for another 9 days. Again, remove that which is turned black and put it with the rest. Then, the author says, continue the operation till the water is clear and pure. Let its water of life be poured over the black substance in a small glass vessel, so that it shall float over it to the height of 1 inch, and let it stand 9 days over a gentle fire, renewing the water every day, if necessary. His commentary then on the side is, thus the earth will become clear and white, according to the teaching of the philosophers, for this earth is putrefied and purified with its water. The author continues with, an angel is sent who casts the bones on the putrefied and whitened earth, and the commentary says, which is now mixed with its seed, and let the whole be placed in a closed jar with its alembic. Let the thicker substance be divided from the water by a more violent fire, and remain as a hard substance at the bottom. The author says, in the 11th mansion, the servants pray to God to restore their king. Henceforth, the whole work is concerned with his restoration. For this purpose, a second angel is sent in the 12th mansion, who places the other part of those bones on the earth till they are all thickened. Then a wonderful thing happens. Thus, a succession of angels is sent, who cast the first, second, third, and fourth part of the bones of the earth, where they become white, transparent, and firm. The fifth and sixth parts are changed into yellow, and so also with the seventh, eighth, and ninth. The earth of the bones becomes as red as blood or rubies. The author says then, the king rises from the tomb full of the grace of God. His body is now all spiritual and heavenly, and he has power to make his servants kings. At last he exercises his power upon his servants and his son, placing crowns of gold upon their heads, and making them kings by his grace, since God had given him great power and majesty. Let no impostor, the author says, greedy or wicked person, touch this glorious work with his unclean hands. Let the honest man and him of a wise heart come hither, and him who is capable of exploring the most hidden causes of things. According to author H. Stanley Redgrove, in the first picture, the palace of the king represents gold, his son represents mercury, and the 5 servants represent silver, copper, tin, iron, and lead. The picture of the son, incited by the servants killing his father and catching the blood of his murdered parent in his robes, indicates that an amalgam of gold and mercury is to be prepared, the gold apparently disappearing or dying, while the mercury is colored thereby. The grave being dug symbolizes that a furnace is to be made ready. The son thinks about throwing his father into the grave and leaving him there, but instead both fall in together. We see the son being prevented from escaping, and the son and the father are left in the grave to decay. This symbolizes the instructions to place the amalgam in a sealed vessel in the furnace, and for it to remain there until some change is observed. Ultimately, we see the father restored to life. The symbol of resurrection, which appears often in alchemical literature, means that the gold will finally be obtained in a pure form. It becomes the great medicine. The final outcome is that the king's son and his 5 servants are all made kings in virtue of its powers. Redgrove says that the alchemists believed that a very minute proportion of the philosopher's stone, projected upon considerable quantities of heated mercury, molten lead, or other base metal, would transmute practically the whole into silver or gold. He comments on this, however, and says that this claim has been the object of much ridicule. The philosopher's stone, which it must be remembered was thought of to be a species with gold, was sometimes referred to as the elixir of life. It was thought by the alchemists, if properly applied under certain conditions, to restore the flower of youth to those who knew its secrets. Paracelsus, one of the most well-known of the alchemists, proclaimed that the philosopher's stone purges the whole body of man and cleanses it from all impurities by the introduction of new and more youthful forces, which joins it to the nature of man. Redgrove comments on the practical methods of the alchemists. He says that in their experiments, the alchemists worked with very large quantities of material. They believed strongly in the importance of allowing for another time to effect a desired change in their substances, and they repeated the same operations, such as distillation, on the same material over and over again. They were particularly keen on watching for changes of color in their experiments. The visual on this slide illustrates some characteristic pieces of apparatus used by the alchemists. These illustrations come from books written in 1545 and 1651. The first figure shows a furnace and alembics. The alembic is a sort of still head which can be luted onto a flask or other vessel and used for distillation. In this figure, however, the alembic is used in conjunction with apparatus for subliming substances that were volatile. Another apparatus for sublimation consisted of a sort of oven and 4 detachable upper chambers called eludels. In both types of apparatus, the vapors are cooked in the upper part of the vessel and the substance is deposited in the solid form. It is purified from less volatile impurities. On this slide, we see an athanor, or digesting furnace, and some digesting vessels. A vessel of this type was used for heating bodies in a closed space. The top was sealed up when the substances to be operated upon had been put inside, and the vessel heated in an athanor in ashes. A uniform temperature was thus maintained. The other figure on this slide was used for a similar purpose. The two arms were added so that the vapors could be circulated. Redgrove spends quite a bit of time in his book describing the lives and individual teachings of the alchemists themselves. He says that the first name which is found upon an examination of the history of alchemy is that of Hermes Trismegistus, regarded as the father of alchemy. His name supplied a synonym for the art, because we call it the Hermetic arts. The term hermetically sealed comes from his name. Though the alchemists thought him to be an Egyptian who lived about the time of Moses, Redgrove says he is now generally regarded as a purely mythical figure, a personification of the Egyptian god of learning, Thoth. However, he acknowledges that some person or persons must have written the works attributed to Hermes Trismegistus. The most significant of these works is the Divine Pymander, a mystical religious treatise. According to myth, Alexander the Great found the tomb of Hermes in a cave near Hebron, and it contained an emerald tablet, also known as Smaragdine table. On this table, 13 sentences were inscribed in Phoenician characters, and Redgrove lists these as follows. 1. I speak not fictitious things, but what is true and most certain. 2. What is below is like that which is above, and what is above is like that which is below, to accomplish the miracles of one thing. 3. And as all things were produced by the meditation and mediation of one being, so all things were produced from this one thing by adaptation. 4. Its father is the sun, its mother the moon, the wind carries it in its belly, its nurse is the earth. 5. It is the cause of all perfection throughout the whole world. 6. Its power is perfect if it be changed into earth. 7. Separate the earth from the fire, the subtle from the gross, acting prudently and with judgment. 8. Ascend with the greatest sagacity from the earth to heaven, and then again descend to the earth, and unite together the power of things superior and things inferior. Thus you will obtain the glory of the whole world, and all obscurity will fly far away from you. 9. This thing is the fortitude of all fortitude, because it overcomes all subtle things and permeates every solid thing. 10. Thus were all things created. 11. Thence proceed wonderful adaptations which are produced in this way. 12. Therefore, I am called Hermes Trismegistus, processing and possessing the three parts of the philosophy of the whole world. 13. That which I had to say concerning the operation of the sun is completed. Redgrove says these sentences teach the doctrine of the alchemistic essence of one thing, which is everywhere present, penetrating even solids, and out of which all things of the physical world are made by adaptation or modification. The terms sun and moon probably stand for spirit and matter respectively, not gold and silver. The next video in this series on alchemy will be a brief discussion on some of the important alchemists both before and after the German-Swiss Renaissance physician, botanist, alchemist, astrologer, and occultist Paracelsus.